Our News from the Hill segment tonight. The White House calls for tariffs on steel imports, a 25% tariff on steel, and a 10% tariff on aluminum imports. Now, this announcement garnered widespread criticism, especially from supporters of the Trump administration. As conservatives know, a tariff usually just ends up being a giant tax hike on the American people. Since companies raise prices of their goods to match the tariffs, the raised prices, of course, impacting the consumer the most. So are these steel tariffs a good thing, or are they a bad thing? The White House so far is sticking with them. Take a look.
No, we're not backing down. Mexico is, we've had a very bad deal with Mexico, a very bad deal with Canada. It's called NAFTA. Our factories have left our country. Our jobs have left our country. For many years, NAFTA has been a disaster. We are renegotiating NAFTA, as I said I would. And if we don't make a deal, I'll terminate NAFTA. But if I do make a deal, which is fair to the workers and to the American people, that would be, I would imagine, one of the points that we'll negotiate. It will be tariffs on steel for Canada and for Mexico. People have to understand our country on trade has been ripped off by virtually every country in the world, whether it's friend or enemy. Everybody. China, Russia, and take people that we think are wonderful, the European Union. We can't do business in there. They don't allow. They have trade barriers that are worse than tariffs. They also have tariffs, by the way, but they have trade barriers far worse than tariffs. And if they want to do something, we'll just tax their cars that they send in here like water. So we may have friends, but remember this. We lost over the last number of years $800 billion a year. Not $500,000, not 12 cents. We lost $800 billion a year on trade.
With me now, trade economist at the Heritage Foundation, Tori Whiting. Tori, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Tori, talk to me about the impact that these tariffs are going to have. It is my understanding economically of tariffs that they usually just end up impacting the American people the most. They're sort of like a tax hike, like I said in the introduction, because what happens is companies raise the prices of their goods to match the prices that they're paying in the tariffs. That price is passed on to consumers, and consumers, especially low-income consumers, end up being hit the hardest by these.
You're absolutely correct. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about tariffs is that they're impacting or they are a way to tax other countries. That is simply not the case. A tariff is paid by the American people when they go to buy imported products or even products that are made here in the United States. If they're competing products, it's going to result in all the prices rising to meet some sort of new market value. So this is a direct impact on the pocket of American workers and American families. And all of those crumbs that you just received during tax reform, they're all going to go away in paying tariffs.
Right, and this is an interesting statistic, I think. If Americans were to eliminate all the tariffs that we currently have today, lower income families in our country could expect to retain more of their income than the 2001 and 2003 tax cuts allowed them to keep combined. That's a lot of money. I'm not sure that we want to be moving in that direction.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, low-income families are the ones who are purchasing imported products the most. Think about Walmart, and you go to Walmart and you want to buy your groceries or clothing. A lot of lower income Americans, average middle class Americans, shop at places that carry imported products. And when you raise the prices on those products, you make it so their dollars aren't going as far. You know, a great example is the White House came out with the example that a car would only be increased by 0.5%. Well, 0.5% of $35,000 is $175. That's a week of groceries for the average American family.
Right. It's a lot of money if you're not just talking about the elitists in Washington, D.C. I also want to look back just a little bit at our recent history here. This I'm talking about the Obama administration and the George W. Bush administration here. The Bush administration implemented a steel tariff as well. It went all the way up to 30%. Tori, what happened when they raised that tariff to 30%?
Well, it was no surprise. The United States lost jobs as a result of these tariffs. A year into the tariffs, there were 200,000 jobs lost in steel-consuming industries here in the United States. That's more than the number of jobs that exist in steel-producing industries here in the U.S. And today, we have upwards of 17 million jobs in America that are dependent on steel imports as a means of production. Those jobs are really hanging in the balance, and it's a typical situation of the administration picking winners and losers in the market and winners and losers in America. You're pitting some industries over others. And if the administration wants to have a pro-growth policy that advances our manufacturing sector, tariffs are not the way to do it.
No, I agree with you. I don't think that they're targeting this in the right way here. We saw the same thing, by the way, from the Obama administration. They tried tariffs with tires from China. It didn't work. It just jacked up the prices for the American people and cost jobs here. Tori, what's a better way to handle this? Because I understand where the president's coming from. China has been manipulating their trade with us. Other countries do the same. We end up getting sort of the short end of the stick on trade around the world. What is a better way to target these either trade deficits or the unfair trading that happens between nations without resorting to tariffs that hurt the American people?
Trade is a win-win for all countries involved. However, if there are any issues with implementing or enforcing trade rules, that should be done through the World Trade Organization. That's why that organization exists, and it's why the United States was one of the champions behind the foundation of the World Trade Organization. Imposing tariffs just does damage to the American people, but if you go through the international community and work through that process to get other countries and the United States to lower their barriers, then you're going to result in an outcome that is going to have the least amount of harm on American taxpayers and their bottom line.
Right, and President Trump has had so many successes, I think, with the economy so far. We're at 3% GDP growth, jobs are up, unemployment is down. The Dow is, well, it goes up and down, but generally is up. He's had so many successes here. I'd hate to see it undone by a tariff for this purpose. Tori, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate you breaking it down. It was good to talk to you.